All right, so I'm now joined by an individual originally from Brooklyn, Nova Scotia. This University of Windsor alum, known as one of the world's shortest elite shot putters and a 2021 Olympian, Sarah Mitton. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This is awesome to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I seen your reaction to my intro. That I actually got right from the Team Canada profile. So I didn't know.
Oh, really?
I didn't know it.
No, I haven't seen that. I'll have to go take a look.
I didn't know, if what they were alluding to, but yeah, nevertheless, first off, you're out in California now, right? So what's going on recently since the games?
Yeah, since the games, we shut down a little bit afterwards, kind of rest, recharge. But with the postponement of the games last year, in 2020, this upcoming 2022 season was pretty jam-packed. So didn't really get the break that I think we were all looking for, but so now just here in California preparing for World Indoor Championships, which are in about a week, which kind of catching me off guard as I say that now, as I'm on the opposite coast, but preparing for World Indoors. And then, this outdoor season is jam-packed. We have World Outdoors in July, Commonwealth Games, and NACAC Championships on top of just like the regular track and field schedule. So lots to look forward to.
Yeah, so you're busy, obviously. But like you said, you're out there now. You've been around. From the east coast of Canada. So humble beginnings, I'm sure. Growing up out east, what was it like growing up out there for you?
It was good. I definitely love the fact that I grew up out east. I don't think I'd want it any other way. The way that I grew up and the way that I got into sport was, like you said, just like humble beginnings. I didn't have everything I needed from the start, but I think that's what got me most intrigued in sport. Seeking out those opportunities and making those moves, I think it forced me to grow up really quickly in the sport. So it was, even though I wasn't the best, it was, moving to Ontario to pursue track and field, because track and field out east just wasn't as developed as it is now. And I think it's still growing, but so I had to make a move to go if I wanted to, pursue track and field on a bigger level. So every time I think about it, I don't think I would have grown up any other way. And I'm not sure I would have found where I was going. If I had grown up somewhere else.
Yeah, that's for sure. Sometimes, when it's not like at your fingertips or you're not exposed to everything, you got to get yourself there, right? So obviously that's exactly what happened for you. You never like to assume anything, but, coming from out east, that's why I said humble beginnings, simple East Coast lifestyle. My girlfriend's actually from Halifax, so that's why and I've been there, so that's why I know so much.
Oh, amazing. That's so cool. Where's she from?
Halifax, right from Halifax.
Halifax, right straight from Halifax.
Yeah, right from Halifax. And we went out there out east around Christmas time. I got myself some gear, and now the WinCity Sports Podcast is an affiliate of East Coast Lifestyle. So
I saw that. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I didn't even think of it until talking about it now. I was like, I guess we got to bring that up.
Yeah, I have some East Coast Lifestyle gear of my own, actually. When it first came out, of course, it was like hot commodity, and I ended up getting myself a sweater, and then I actually got one for Christmas this year because I didn't make it home for Christmas, so I got sent that. So it was like a little piece of home all the way in Toronto, so it was nice. Yeah,
it's the perfect home gift, and cool stuff too. That's one thing why I like it, model my stuff, and do the affiliate programs, because they're actually cool material or like gear, right? So why not? But of course, you're well, actually, before we get into, kind of specializing in shot put and stuff, did you do a lot of other sports growing up? Obviously, I can't imagine you start doing shot put at an early age, right? So.
Yeah, definitely. I played a little bit of everything. I think, when I got to middle school, that's when I really decided that I was an athlete. Growing up, played little kid soccer, that kind of stuff. But really found my way in sports. It was definitely something to get a lot of my energy out. And I think my parents really liked that. But once I got to middle school, it was kind of like anything going, and it was, just a way to keep busy. And growing up in Liverpool, Nova Scotia, there wasn't a ton going on outside of school, so kept me out of trouble and kept me active. So I think I did, soccer, basketball, volleyball. I played badminton, a little bit of table tennis, cool. Literally just whatever was going. We had a low core group of girls in my small school, and we just rotated through the sports. So didn't really find shot put until it would have been grade 7, grade 8 year. There was actually a a girl in my hometown who was a thrower and she was getting ready to go to FSU in the States. So she had kind of like brought that to the attention of the school, that was even really like an event in track and field, and kind of picked it up from there.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, that's the way that it usually goes down too, right? Especially probably coming from where you're coming from, just seeing that someone can do this, inspires you to do something similar. And I was going to ask, again, you don't start doing shot put at a young age. So like, I was going to ask, how you kind of got into it, or any sort of track events, I guess, and, kind of alluded to it just now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, track was just same as I mentioned, like I just kind of fell into it. It was kind of like that, spring, summer sport. You got a couple days off school. All you had to do is jump over some hurdles and jump into the sand pit. So I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, right off the bat, like all of that came pretty naturally to me, especially like in my area. I did really well. And then it was the second year that I had done track was when I had seen kind of this other girl, Chelsea Whalen, throw the shot put. She was throwing the javelin. I was like, okay, I understood it, but still didn't really have someone to like teach me how to do it. She was a few too many years ahead of me in school. So a coach came over to me and kind of said, I kind of see this in you. Maybe you should give it a try. And so I was one of like the only girls throwing at the school at the time, but I went over with the boys at the little shot put pit, and nobody really knew what we were doing. Like we tried our best, and I ended up going to a meet just shortly after that, and I broke like a small local record. It wasn't actually Chelsea's, but just some record that had been standing for a few years or however long. And there was a coach there from Bridgewater who is one of my my godsends and reasons that I think that I'm in track and field right now still. She came like running up to me after, was like, who is that? And I need her to throw. Like the most excitable woman I'd ever met. And she's like going off about joining a track team, throwing full time, like how great I was at this already. And it was like just so excited. And I was just kind of like completely overwhelmed because this is like day 5 throwing shot put, just like, okay. You're like, you want me to like full time throw this little ball? Hadn't really fallen in love with the sport yet, but I was intrigued with how excited she was. And that's what kept me, that's what got me to the track and field club in Bridgewater, and then kept me in it the whole way through.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, if someone's inspiring you or encouraging you to do something, especially at a young age, I mean, like you said, you must have been in middle school at that time, right?
Yeah, I was just young. So I like didn't really know what I was doing, didn't really obviously know the potential that was there.
Yeah.
So her being excited really was like, okay, like she thinks I'm good at this. You're kind of getting it back. And it was fun that way.
Exactly. I was going to say too, like from the beginning, it's like, we're just trying to throw a ball as far as possible. Right. So that's, you didn't like fall in love with it yet, because you're just like, well, I don't know, this is my first day or whatever, right? First week. So interesting stuff. Because I was going to ask, I figure by at least high school, you develop your skills and are doing it more full time. But I wanted to ask if there was anything outside of school, right? Here, a lot of times people just do it high school level or whatever, and whatever happens from there. But there's clubs, like you mentioned, there's leagues and stuff like that. So you were obviously deeply involved pretty much from the beginning, I guess, if they pretty much recruited you, right?
Yeah, pretty much from the beginning. I took like the club route, the whole, like, it was almost like from 0 to 100. Like I went, have never thrown a shot put to, I then joined a track and field club like a week and a half later. And then a few months later, I attended like the Legion National Championships in Ottawa. So it was just like a really quick turnaround with like even like finding out about the sport to obviously, doing it full time. I mean, I still played a lot of other sports, but track became like my number one priority, mainly just because my mom told me basically if she was going to drive me to Bridgewater, which was about 45 minutes away from my house, that I had to be fully committed. So I think that helped a little bit. I was like, okay, she's going to take me, but this is now my sport. So that was really cool. But yeah, outside of that, like pretty much did it full time in school and then kind of on the side, outside in the club world since the beginning, which was nice.
Yeah, because it's such a unique thing, unique sport, I guess you can say. I mean, all the track and field too, right? So, I interview hockey players, basketball players. it's the same route, you know, almost in the same way. But in a sport like this, you never know, right? So interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, I feel like everyone really gets into sports similar ways. Like I heard a lot of stories about, you know, a high school coach picking someone and being like, hey, you should try this. And like it sounds very similar. But yeah, like you said, with a niche sport, like, you know, hockey, basketball, like there's kind of that team aspect that you can get brought into. And like I found with shot put, like one-on-one, it was like me and that coach almost through and through. Like we'd have a few people in and out every couple of years who wanted to give it a try, but it was definitely like an independent sport, especially being like one of the only throwers in the eastern zone of Nova Scotia. So that was a big part of it, right? Like had to either love it or love the idea of it. So that's kind of kept me in it.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, that kind of you like that, you know, that interested you to be an individual sport athlete, and again, you know, just almost being recruited, being pushed that way. Again, in a unique sport like shot put or anything in track, might feel a little weird, but it's like they see something in me. This must be good, right?
Yeah, and she had coached a few other, like she was involved with help coaching like Chelsea at one point, the girl from my high school, and like a few other throwers. So it was like, okay, like you can see what they had done, and like it kind of gave me like the insight that, you know, she could get me to like a university level. Like at that point, I don't think anybody, I'm not sure we really saw like Olympian in the future. And I'll say that like for sure about myself. Like every time when I started track and field, it was very like step by step. It was, you know, I started it, hey, this is cool, like I can make Team Nova Scotia, do this like provincially, and then it was, hey, I can actually go to university for this, and then after university it was like, maybe I can make the national team. So it was never like I picked up the shot and I was just so much better than anybody else. It's just been like a really slow grind to the top.
Yeah, like you said, you know, you did the work, and like you realize that too from an early age, you know, like, well, if my mom's gonna drive me, I gotta commit, right? So that's it all right there. And coming from an elite group, you know, pretty much out east, right? Like you said, there wasn't a big community of people doing this, right? So, you know, that being said, you know, at home, high school, and all that, I can only imagine you're doing all those events like you mentioned, and then you know, maybe you start to get recruited. How do you end up in Windsor? Is there a lot of offers, or how did that go down for you?
Yeah, I kind of took a few twists and turns. In high school, I actually deviated and tried to do the heptathlon for about a year and a half, 2 years. So that kind of took away, I think, from my potential to go to the States, because I had missed out on like competing specifically in shot put for like about a year. So I had some marks just from like within the heptathlon, but in my grade 12 year, I came back to it. So by the time that, you know, looking for a school came around, and I had really like decided that I was going to be a thrower instead of just a track and field athlete, it kind of caught me off guard. Like things started coming up really, really quickly. I had a couple of like small offers to the States. We were exploring that route, but I think I was just too lost in the sauce. Like there was a lot of stuff coming at me, and I didn't have a lot of guidance at the time. And I was more so worried about making the wrong decision. And I'd heard a lot of, you know, those horror stories from the States of your coach leaving, or, you know, you go to the States, throwers get hurt. So I actually like had a lot of good direction in the Canadian realm. Like I know Jesse Drennan was actually from my track and field club, and he was a university athlete at Windsor at the time. So that's where that connection came from for me. Like Jesse always came home with such like positive things to say about the university and like the Lancer family and everything. So in my grade 11 year, we had gone up and taken a visit, loved it, felt really at home. And that's like very cheesy to say because it's so much about what like the culture is there. Like, like as soon as I got to the track, like everyone was just so welcoming. And from a small town coming into that, I was like, wow, this feels so good.
Yeah, and you know, like you said, that's the, you know, hashtag Lancer family. But not to put down any other sports as well, but it's like the track and field team is it's big, and like you said, it's just like a big family.
Yeah, and it's got that reputation, right? Like
yeah,
I felt safe in that decision, and that plus like everything that you feel when you go to school. Like, it's hard to describe when you feel at home somewhere, but it was just, everything seemed to align, and I kind of knew.
Yeah, absolutely. And still young at that point too, right? Like still a young kid starting this journey, and things started going pretty, again, quickly for you. I guess it never really stopped. As you come here, 2014-15 year, school year, and then it must have been probably following or during that school year was the Pan Am Junior Championships, right off the bat, finishing fourth in that event. So I'm sure that was something crazy. Again, maybe another eye opener, right?
Yeah, that was definitely an eye opener. I know when I came into Windsor, I was quickly ranked in like the top shot putters in like the OUA and U Sport, which was kind of an eye opener for me. I mean, again, never one of the best, like always amongst, the group, especially in Nova Scotia. It wasn't until my grade 12 year that I actually won a championship meet. But yeah, coming into Windsor, ranked really well, kind of really missed that first U Sport performance. It kind of gets to you, like the nerves. Again, such a young shot putter and very inexperienced. I had a couple of fouls and missed a couple of throws, but yeah, that following summer was really an eye opener with the Pan Am Games experience, because I had never made like a national team of any sort. Particularly the last couple of years before that, I had missed out by just like mere centimeters on a couple of like the world youth teams and world junior teams. So to make that and then go in and have a personal best of the meet, I think it kind of helped me regain some confidence going in to the following years as a Lancer.
Yeah. I mean, again, just looking at it on paper, it's like, that's what it seems like. Again, it's your first year, and fuck, it's a pretty big accomplishment right off the bat. Right? So that being said, like we talked about that, you did the Pan Am Games in Peru, World Champions in Qatar, however you say it, Japan you've been to recently. So before we even get there, California, being able to travel the world through this game must be pretty cool. And what I always say, perk to the job, right?
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. I know my parents every day are like, wow, your life is so tough. Like I think I've probably been to like 32 countries already, and specifically shot put's just a really cool one because it's a really small community. So once you kind of get in there, you can, you get to go to all these meets all over the world, whether or not they're with, all the ones you listed were with like the national team for the most part. But the other ones were just like small invites to meets all over the place. So it's been really cool that way. Like, I always tell my parents, like, it's a lot of tracks, hotels, and airports, but there is the odd gems outside of that. Like we get to travel and see a few things while we're there. So it's it's cool.
Yeah, even that's the thing. Like, of course, you're not going to the beach all day or whatever, right? But being outside in this shot put environment, like some of the videos you posted, even obviously from Japan too, it's just like, wow, you get to like see your view and stuff. You get to see some beautiful places.
Yeah, that's been probably one of the best parts of the journey so far.
I can only imagine. And so we talk about all the events that you've done and still doing it, still going through the ranks basically. And now you're out in California. So I wanted to talk about, kind of all the places that you alluded to. I'm sure there's like cool facilities and places that you've been able to drop into, even if it's just for a day, and get some great experience training with high level athletes.
Yeah, it's been really cool. The thing that comes to my mind the most is in 2020, right before the world shut down, we were in New Zealand trying to qualify for for the first Olympic Games. So I was there with my team, and we were there for about a month and a half. And when we had booked the trip, all I could think about was that I was going to be competing against, Valerie Adams, who is like the dame of women's shot. She just announced her retirement. She's got like, I don't even know, like she's won like 4 or 5 consecutive outdoor titles, Olympic champion, has like 5 meets at the Olympic Games. And she had just come back from having a baby and was preparing to compete at the Tokyo Olympics. So I was really looking forward to just meeting her, not competing alongside of her. She was someone who, when I first started getting into shot put, like I watched her at like the 2016 games, and I was like, wow, she's so good. Like I was throwing like 14 meters. I was like, she's throwing like 22. So just like contrasting difference. And then I went to one of the first meets in New Zealand and definitely had like one of those fangirl moments. And then my coach was like, listen, like you're competing, like you're in the same meet. It's not, you're not watching this. And I was like, okay. And for a little bit, I was beating her. And then she ended up winning in true Valerie fashion. And then at the following meet, actually ended up beating her for the first time. And it was just like a full circle moment for me, like watching a minor come in the track world and then being able to compete with her, being actually able to compete with her and beating her. And then I actually have a picture of her like hoisting me up on the podium. So I'm like, it was, yeah, one of those cool moments in sport where you're like, wow, this is really why you do it.
Yeah, special moment. And again, ties to you, right? Like you see a lot of those sappy stories around, but again, not a lot in your field, right? So it's cool. Like you would never kind of guess that looking at some track athletes that they look up to someone that's still competing, especially in the Olympics, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing I think about shot put is like it's such a long-term sport. Like you said, like at the beginning, like you're so young, and I still feel like I'm a young shot putter at 25.
Yeah.
But some of these women who are competing and doing their best are close to 40 now, and so you can be somewhat admiring them and then get to that level where you're then competing against them on their way out. So it's just really cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize the longevity in the sport, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, that's why we do this, and why we got to put it out there and get the exposure. You've had, and speaking of exposure, I mean, you've had a lot of opportunities to get noticed and stuff like that. And you talked about qualifying for the Olympics. Wanted to go over that a little bit. I mean, qualifying for the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken, in front of one of your heroes, big deal or not?
Yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. I remember, I think I was more focused on the fact that I had just thrown further than her and won the meet than I did that I really qualified for the games. Yeah. But yeah, it was just like a finally moment. Like I had actually, speaking of qualifying, I guess, I had a really good season in 2018, my first year with my coach. And at the end of the season, after learning how to rotate, so completely switching my technique, it really like clicked. And I ended up going to a meet in Pennsylvania, and my PB at the time was 1780, and I ended up throwing like 1852 that meet. And that would have been like what was over the Olympic standard for the coming year. So it was one of those moments where you're like, oh crap, like, did I just do that? But it didn't count because we were so far out from the game. So then I spent like 2 years trying to catch up to that moment. So it was like, I knew I could throw it. I knew I had like the potential to qualify for the games, but it just like wasn't happening. But they were like trending in that direction, but I couldn't get the mark. And so it was that moment for us was like, okay, like finally, like you finally did it.
Well, and then as soon as it did, that one moment, right? So
it does. And thankfully in track and field, you do get quite a few of those opportunities to, achieve the standard. But yeah, it was one of those moments where it's like, okay, I can breathe.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like. Like once you punch your ticket, right? It's like, do you even realize it right when it happens? Like, it's like, did I win kind of thing, And it's crazy when like you talked about, 2018 kind of changing your game. That's like pretty much when you had wrapped up your OUA U Sport career. And so it's crazy to think like how long you could be doing something and how much there is to still learn and improve. And like you said, you feel like you're a young shot putter at 25, and that attests to it right there,
Yeah, I think that's really cool because through my Windsor experience, I mean, every year I kept getting better and better. So there was nothing to ever be upset about. But I was actually a glider, and I don't know if you know a little bit about shot put. There's like the two different ways to throw it, I guess. So the glide technique and the rotation. And it was really like all through university sport, we just continued to work on the glide. It was what I knew. I was still doing well. I was still progressing. So we kind of just, stuck with it. And then as soon as I finished university, I started working with a coach in Toronto. And he basically told me if I wanted to take it to the next level, I had to rotate because I was too short. And
well, that's where it comes from.
That's where it comes from, because in order to really do like the glide technique, you really need to be this like really big, strong girl, like, or really tall at least. Like the height factors in a lot more. And he was like, listen, I think you got it, but we got to do something different. And I was like, as my current coach now, I was like, Richard, I've already been doing this for like 8 years. I'm pretty nervous to start again. And the cool thing is it didn't really feel like starting again, because everything that I had already done still factored into the throw. It was just like, it took me over a year to figure it out again. Yeah. So it was like a lot of ups and downs along the way, but I don't think I'd be where I was if I hadn't switched techniques. So
yeah. I mean, obviously he's seen that in you, and that's sometimes what it takes. And I didn't even really know what they meant when they say what's the deal of being a short shot putter? I don't get it, right? But to kind of talk about, the differences between the two, I guess. I mean, like you were talking about, I guess, like, is the glider more just like explosive, and the rotation is what? I don't really know how to compare it,
I guess for the glider, so it's like a lot of physics, right? Like throwing a ball, throwing a javelin, anything like that. It's like all about like the physics equation, basically, of like how far the object can go. Okay. So height and velocity have a lot of factors. So if you can't have the height, you got to have the velocity. And then, so with the glide technique, it's a shorter ball path. So you're just kind of doing like a little hop backwards. So it's a very linear event. And so it takes a lot of force to move a ball over a shorter distance, basically. So having the height really helps. And then with the rotation technique, what it does is it gives you a longer ball path, so you have a longer time to push on it. So it kind of takes away the height factor if you're equally as explosive, pretty much. So it just gives you a little bit more time to create power. And we do notice that a lot more of the shot putters who spin or rotate are a lot shorter. So it's definitely a way to make up for it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't realize that, right? So you got to compensate with what you got, with what God gave you, I guess, right? So, but it's cool to learn about the sport a little bit as well. But obviously, the grandest stage of them all, the Olympics, we got to talk about it. I mean, it had to have been a frustrating year, like you said, with it being pushed back a full year. But first and foremost, let's just talk about like the experience itself and like the village, and again, going to Japan.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were upset that it was a COVID year. Particularly, I noticed like athletes who had already made the games. They knew like what to compare it to, right? Like I kind of knew what it was like before COVID. And for me, by the time the games rolled around, like we've been living in COVID for almost a year and a half. So it was really easy to kind of be like, well, this is just normal. And then Japan did do a really good job of making sure inside the village at least felt normal. I mean, the main differences I think we noticed were like in the dining hall, we had these like plexiglass booths that you had to sit in. You had to wear gloves, sanitizer, like just a whole like process just to go get your meal. But ultimately, like the food that they served was all the same. You have like sort of like different cultures, so they have like something for everyone pretty much. So there's just like more food than you could ever imagine, and like 24 hours a day, so you got to be careful a little bit. And then I mean, in the village, like there was like daily COVID tests, which were kind of a pain in the butt, but like once you got them into your routine, it was pretty good. I mean, I feel like as an athlete, you're probably one of the most tested people out there, probably aside from the healthcare profession. But even at camps like this, like we do daily testing, so a lot of swabs.
I think that we're getting used. We're pretty much used to it by now, but still, like those are the differences, right? But whatever, it's all about the experience and everything you do. And like we talked about traveling and all that stuff. So that's one of the cool things when it comes to the Olympics too, is just the whole event throughout the couple of weeks that it goes down, just everything that's going on around there, right?
Yeah, I mean, being in the village is just unlike anything else. Like just from the minute you step in, like the way that they put it together, you're like, wow, like you see all the countries, like all the buildings have country names, like everything is just done to the nines, and it's like a whole experience in itself, like village life. And then outside of that, you have like your competitive life. And the biggest difference notable there was just like the no fans, right? Like,
yeah, true.
Being in a full track stadium without anyone, it was almost eerie. But for me, it was good. I think being my first games, I think that would have like obviously really augmented the nerves, because I know I was in Taiwan for a bit and for a competition in 2017, and there was about 90,000 people in the stadium. You could just feel it vibrating. So it really adds like an extra layer to the competition. So for me, like being the first one, already a little nervous. Without that, it was good.
Yeah, you'll be the opposite, you know, like everyone had the experience before. Now you can get the real experience in the latter years, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully 2024 things are back to normal.
The thing about it being pushed back is that you get it that much sooner, you know, it feels like, you know, so before you know it, we're going to be talking about this stuff all over again, right? So, I mean, I can only imagine, obviously, the result's not the result you were looking for, at least in, you know, that column. But again, we talked about the experience, and again, you're taking as much out of this experience as possible, I can only imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, competing at the games was uncomparable to anything else. I mean, you try to go in as prepared as you can to feel the way you're going to feel when you step into kind of that like Olympic competition. And for me, like the closest thing I had to that experience, especially with a lot of shutdown beforehand, was my world championship in 2019 in Qatar. And that games for me, like I felt like a, you know, bird out of, or a fish out of water, just like completely out of my element. I needed a PB to make the final. So I just kind of like, that all kind of got to me. So for me, like I had that to draw on, which was a good experience in the sense of like a huge learning curve. But I had been out of like some major competitions for 2 years. So stepping back into that again, I was like, "Ooh, okay, we're here." But it felt better. It felt more like we were on the same page. Like I competed against a lot of the girls through the last 2 years. So getting a little bit more comfortable on the world stage. But yeah, when they say like Olympics, and then it all just means a little bit more, right?
Yeah, and that's where you want to be. That's what you want, right? So again, it could be overwhelming, but it's like, this is what I asked for, so whatever, right?
Yeah, and so the result definitely wasn't what we wanted. But I did have a second round big foul, which to me was like an exciting peek into the future. It's a part of our sport, like fouling is obviously not something you wish for, but I felt like at least I was able to put a big enough throw out there that I could have made the final. And then that actually really highlighted for me this year. Like, I think the main difference that I've taken away from the games is I actually practice not fouling in all of my sessions now. And I'm seeing that come out in my meets a lot more. So it was definitely a chronic issue that we didn't have time to address before the games. And now I'm like, next time.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it being an individual sport, that's exactly, you know, you're going to take as much out for you, you know, as selfish as it might seem. In a team aspect, that's not the mentality, but this case, it is. So since then, you know, as we talked about at the beginning, the game's wrapped up and you've just been doing your thing, just training every day and just getting ready for every competition that you have lined up. So what's a normal day like, I guess?
Normal day for me, pretty much wake up, breakfast, and usually go do a training session. So first one of the day is usually a throw. So I usually go do my technical session with my coach, and we throw probably for about an hour and a half, just reps on reps. Whether we're throwing heavy implements, lighter implements, just to work on different parts of the throw. Sometimes we're focused on speed, so we'll throw lighter implements. And then if it's a bit more of a strength session, we'll pick like an overweighted implement. And then usually come back, have some lunch, and then do like a strength lift in the afternoon. So something, I mean, day to day. Yeah, I'm like day to day changes so much, but usually we do that 5 times a week. So about 10 sessions a week, which isn't too crazy.
I guess so. But hey, that's cool. That's cool stuff to be, you know, doing what you love for a living, right? So I thought I seen that you were also part of the new Canada Track and Field League, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah. Because I went back and I couldn't, like, I thought you posted or something. Then I was like, did I dream that? So let's talk about that. That's exciting stuff. And I mean, obviously you're going to be one of the pioneers for shot put.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I actually just learned about it very, very recently, and met with the founder of it just recently on Instagram Live. So we actually got a chance to really talk more in depth about it. But I think it's a really good idea. I think it's something that Canada is really missing. And, you know, as I can say, like growing up, when I was like going to all these like local meets in Nova Scotia, they used to have something called the NTL, like the National Track League. And it was like this series of meet that this high performance group of athletes went meet to meet to meet. And I was like, oh, so cool. Like there's a league in Canada for track and field other than just kind of like the open meets.
Yeah.
And there was like points allocated and prize money and all sorts of stuff. And then it just kind of disappeared. So when I first saw this, it was like he had posted that Tim Nadeau, Bish, Aaron Brown, and Brandon McBride were going to be like ambassadors for it. I was like, okay, what is this? We need to like dive in. And it was really cool. It's this like new program, and it's, I'd say, trying to kind of bring that like team aspect to track and field, which is cool because as we've talked about, it's an individual event, so like you're not really used to having a team to like count on. But I think that will really get people to like buy into like the track and field as a fan base, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's what it needs, right? So the exposure, even just at home. Again, it kind of alludes to what you're saying a little bit too. I mean, it's an individual sport, but you are a team, right? Supporting each other, doing your own things. But this league, like I always watch the Olympics, and I always say like some of these sports, like what are they doing the other 3-4 years, right? Like where are they competing? It's just not out there, right? It's just not exposed and at that level. So this could be what a lot of people need and a lot of sports need, and we can do it at home.
Yeah, I think that's really missing. I mean, because yeah, like you said, for us, like we have on the world level, we have like the Diamond League, which I mean has some exposure, but isn't widely known to like the fan base, right? Like you have to really be a trackie to like put on the live stream for a Diamond League.
Yeah.
Or like the one below it is like the Continental Tours, and you really have to be in the world if you want to find those links. But so I think, yeah, what's missing is kind of like that national level league. Like we have them from almost, a lot of our other sports. I won't say all because I probably would be overgeneralizing there, but there's so many. But yeah, I think it's really missing, and I'm hoping that this really fills the void, and that a lot of like the Canadian athletes will buy into it. Like,
yeah,
because as like the inaugural year, I think it's really important that as leaders in Canadian track and field that we step up and also take it on, because I think if you can leave the sport better than when you started, then I think that's all that you can really ask for.
And that's what it's going to take. I mean, like again, if we had like a national league and we had a Canada league, Ontario, provincial, everyone does a little bit to make it grow, it'll grow even bigger, right? Just like everything else. So
yeah,
that's interesting that it's still really new. It's still just getting off the ground, but you're going to be part of it. So I definitely wanted to bring that up, and I just want to thank you for coming on and telling your story and chatting with me.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was really cool. A lot of questions and stuff that I don't usually get. So that was good.
So I did well. Cool.
Yeah, you did really well.
Thanks a lot. Alrighty, that was awesome. Yeah, and doing these kind of sports sometimes it's tough for me. I don't want to sound like stupid or like it's not that I know what I'm talking about, and I don't sometimes know what I'm talking about. So it's cool.
That's
to know
okay
that.
Though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. I say in the interviews a lot. I say, hey, I don't know. Like I know team stuff, I know sports stuff, but I don't know about your sport, and I want to learn about it. So I could have read for however many hours about shot put, or you can tell me. So I'd rather hear it from the horse's mouth kind of thing. So
yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, even deeper than that level is like we also need to grow our sport. Like I think the more that we put ourselves out there, and I mean talk about shot put, like I know that in Nova Scotia it's grown a lot just because I do it, right? And like post about it all the time, and like it gets shared around, and like I know people in my hometown who would have never known about shot put follow shot put now, and it's like how bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, that's but it's really until like people start like sharing that information that you can actually like enjoy or understand like enough to even want to watch it. Like I find that's the hard part.
That's what it takes, one person tells another person, so forth, so forth, right? I mean, it's not like the stuff's boring or anything. Like people will be entertained and interested in it if they just see it, right? So
yeah, and so I really appreciate that from your point of view. That's
absolutely
awesome.
Yeah. And so not sure when this is going to be out. I was going to put it out Monday, but I think I might save it for reasons, but just spread out the sports and stuff like that. So you'll see it online. I'll send it to you and everything, and that will be kind of be part of it too. Again, obviously, to get the exposure out, not only for yourself but for the league and shot put, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll appreciate it. He was like, "Wow, thank you so much for joining," and I was like, for me, I was like, "Wow, this is so cool! Like, thank you for having this." And apparently we got a whole bunch of other like high caliber athletes in track and field on board, so he'll definitely appreciate the exposure on that front too.
Fantastic. It helps me too, obviously. So.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
Everyone's helping everyone.
Yeah, enjoy your evening out there in Cali. We're jealous. I mean, we had a 10-degree day today. It was pretty warm. So yeah, I can't imagine what it's like there. But
it's again. A smidge warmer, but yeah.
Thanks again.
All right, no problem.
Be in touch.
Appreciate it. All right, talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.